I think I mentioned this before, but I was a Boy Scout. In fact, radical honesty here, I was, and still am for that matter, an Eagle Scout. And I know that in today's world, scouting, particularly the Boy Scouts of America, have some issues and deserve their fair amount of criticism. But I have to say, my experience of scouting was just overwhelmingly positive. I had a great troop that was interested in learning, but not so serious about doing everything perfectly. We made fun of the troops that were a little too well-dressed, in fact. We were a little shabbier, but I thought we had a lot more fun. On the whole, though, it was just a really valuable place for me to learn, to be in supportive male community, something I think is hard to find these days. It was a good place to find and have positive male role models, beyond just my father, who was also an excellent male role model. It was a good place to have fun in the outdoors, to camp and cook and hike and canoe and all sorts of things like that. So where am I going with all that? Well, as you may know, the motto of the Boy Scouts is be prepared. We attempted to take that pretty seriously during my time in Scouts. We didn't always succeed. We tried to have the right gear for campouts, and we had backups when inevitably a tent broke, as it did one night in a storm on top of my head, basically. We researched, we tried to be ready for things, we learned to tie the right knots so that we could do the work that needed to be done, and so on and so on. We tried to be prepared. As we've noticed today, in the Christian faith, Advent is the season of waiting and of preparation. It's a time approximately a month long, though it varies each year based on exactly how the calendar falls. It's a time when observant Christians take steps to prepare for Christmas. It mirrors, of course, the last month of Mary's pregnancy. And when I say to prepare for Christmas, I don't mean making sure you've completed your shopping lists, though maybe that too. My friends in Christian churches do things like read Advent devotionals every day. In fact, I've contributed over the years a couple of reflections when friends have asked me to do that, to such devotionals. They do things like pray daily. They take steps to prepare themselves for one of the most joyous observances of the year in Christmas. And I like this idea because I don't think I'm super great at preparation myself. I've had to really work on that in my life to make sure that I do that. Preparation is so important, which is a thing that when you say it out loud seems really self-evident. You have to get the ingredients before you cook the meal. You have to, as I was very glad I remembered late last night, you have to put fuel in the car if you want to be able to drive to church, which I didn't want to do first thing this morning, so I'm glad I did it last night. But I also feel, and I said a minute ago that this has been a learning edge for me in my life, that I haven't always taken that advice sort of writ large in my life. I mean, I think I've gotten pretty good for the small things at getting prepared, getting the right stuff together, packing not just the morning I'm leaving for a trip, but at least starting before that, this sort of thing. But sometimes the preparation for larger life hasn't happened, not enough for the right stuff anyway. And I think sometimes this is because our society makes this difficult. Now, sometimes things have worked out, even so. I was thinking about this recently. I saw a lot of babies in the airport as we were traveling this week, and I remember traveling with babies and the preparation that took. And I thought about how we prepared for the birth of our first child. Did we prepare? Of course. Were we prepared for our first child? Absolutely not. In the way that no parent is ever entirely prepared for that experience. And even the second or third time around, you think you're ready for whatever this child will bring, having been through it all with one of them, right? And the new child proceeds to show you that they have brought an entirely new bag of tricks to the party, ones that you not only did not prepare for, but didn't even know existed often. And here's where I get back to those systemic issues about preparation in our society. Hardly anyone is ready for the reality of, say, the price of daycare for young children, or for the medical costs of birth, or the costs of adoption, or of how hard it is to, say, work and parent at the same time. It's impossible to prepare for those things because they're impossible to prepare for. But back to preparation. We'll try. I have felt at various times in my life somewhat adrift, like I haven't done whatever I should have done by this point. And sometimes I'm not even sure what that preparation would have been, because I'm not sure what the next step is going to be or should be. I felt this very strongly at one point during my college time. I had gotten to a point where I knew the course of study I had been on was not what I needed or wanted to continue with. So I knew a change was coming and needed to come, but I had no clue what was next. And consequently, I wasn't sure what on earth to do next. How do you prepare for something that you don't know about? Now, for me and for many of us, I think preparation is the companion of anxiety. Maybe for you too. Sometimes preparation is the solution for anxiety, but sometimes it's just a way to distract oneself from figuring out whatever the problem really is. And so anxiety gets produced in me. I was thinking about that, and I came back to a reading I often go to. There's a contrasting, but I think complementary, view given to us by Buddhism. That of the notion of being in the present moment, of appreciating the here and now without undue concern or attention to past or future. I saw a reading, it's by my colleague, the Reverend James Ishmael Ford, who is, really interestingly, both a UU minister and a Zen priest. He's retired now, but is still very active in his writing life. You can find his books and various things online. It's a reading I've shared part of here before, so you may have heard of this, but he speaks of awakening, of being so present in this moment that the most basic thing can become a subject of wonder. He has a reading I really like in which he talks about the single leaf of cabbage coming to the top of his soup, and how exciting that was in that moment. And I've always found this really hard. I'm always worried about that thing I said last week to someone that didn't come off well, or about the next thing I have to do. So to be present here, not worrying about what happened or looking ahead to what might happen, is a challenge. Maybe you resonate with that too. And as I was thinking about this, I think the piece that connects all these together, not without some tension, is the concept of waiting. Waiting is something we don't like to talk about because it is, at best, it's seen as a nuisance, and at worst, just a real waste. It's not at all the living in the present that Ford speaks of in the reading I was talking about. And it's not the preparation that Advent calls us to. It's something entirely different, perhaps unhelpful. I think of the Dr. Seuss classic of The Places You'll Go, in which the waiting place is described as a most useless place. A place where people are, to quote, waiting for a train to go or a bus to come or a plane to go or the mail to come or the rain to go or the phone to ring or the snow to snow or waiting around for a yes or no or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting. Waiting for the fish to bite or waiting for wind to fly a kite or waiting around for Friday night or waiting perhaps for their Uncle Jake or a pot to boil or a better break or a string of pearls or a pair of pants or a wig with curls or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. But I'm not going to leave you there, because I believe, and maybe you've seen where I'm going with all this, that we can bring these ideas together into harmony. And to do that, I turn to wisdom from another friend and colleague, the Reverend Megan Lloyd Joyner. I'm going to quote a little bit from her. She says that in times like these, we might find ourselves wishing that time would pass more quickly to get us to the other side of a nightmare. How do we live in that kind of waiting time? Advent challenges us not just to wait, but to wait actively, to do the work of preparing hearts until the soil that awaits seeds of hope and love. Advent encourages us to be present in each moment of waiting. She continues, the moment of magic, the time we've been waiting for, is now. Not some future date, not the end of the Advent calendar, not the hour that the days begin to lengthen again, or that long-awaited morning of presents. The mystery, the excitement, the beauty of this season are all found in the waiting time. And so we wait, allowing ourselves to be fully present to all that is happening in each moment. When we do, we join our lives and our breath and our hearts with all who are waiting for justice, waiting for peace, waiting for a world reborn. And so ends her words. And so this season, I try to be present in the waiting and active in the preparation, to remember that the moment of magic is now, the eternal now. This moment we live in is the only true and real thing we have. Yes, we are informed by our past, and yes, we have dreams and expectations for the future. But the only time we truly have is now, this moment. Waiting, mindfulness, preparation, all of it is a challenge, but also an invitation to be here, to be present.